The silence before death is deafening. In the mountains of Afghanistan, four Navy SEALs pressed their bodies against cold rock, feeling their hearts pound like war drums. Each breath could be their last. 40 enemy fighters surrounded them in a deadly circle, closing in like hungry wolves. Their radios were dead. Their ammunition was running low. Hope seemed as distant as home. But sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes a guardian angel wears desert camouflage and carries a sniper rifle. Sometimes the difference between life and death is a single, perfectly aimed shot echoing across the mountains. This is the true story of how one woman's deadly precision turned a certain massacre into an impossible rescue mission that would be whispered about in military circles for years to come. The black helicopter cut through the night sky like a deadly whisper. Inside, four Navy SEALs checked their weapons one final time as the mountains of Afghanistan grew larger beneath them. Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez adjusted his night vision goggles and glanced at his team. These men had been through hell together in Iraq, Somalia, and countless classified missions that would never make the news. To his left sat Chief Petty Officer Jake Thompson, a massive man from Texas who could bench press 300 pounds and still move like a shadow through enemy territory. Thompson had been in the Navy for 12 years and had more confirmed kills than he cared to count. His specialty was close-quarters combat, and his hands were registered weapons in 3 different states. Across from them, Petty Officer First Class Danny Chun cleaned his sniper rifle with the care of a surgeon preparing for operation. Chun was the team's eyes and ears, capable of hitting a target from over a mile away in perfect conditions. Born in San Francisco to immigrant parents, he had joined the military to prove his patriotism and had exceeded every expectation the Navy had placed on him. The youngest member was Petty Officer Second Class Alex Rivera, just 24 years old, but already a veteran of 8 combat deployments. Rivera handled explosives and communications, carrying enough C4 to level a small building and radio equipment that could reach satellites orbiting the Earth. His baby face often fooled enemies into underestimating him, a mistake they rarely lived to repeat. The pilot's voice crackled through their headphones. 5 minutes to drop zone, gentlemen. Weather's looking rough up there. Wind speeds at 25 miles per hour. Visibility near zero due to fog. Rodriguez nodded and turned to his men. Remember the mission briefing. We go in quiet, locate the target, confirm identity, and call for extraction. Intelligence says there's a high-value Taliban commander holed up in that compound. This guy has been planning attacks on civilian targets for months. The helicopter began its descent toward a rocky plateau, surrounded by towering peaks. Below them, the Hindu Kush Mountains stretched endlessly in every direction, their snow-capped summits gleaming in the moonlight. This was some of the most dangerous terrain on Earth, where temperatures could drop to 40 below zero, and altitude sickness could kill a man as quickly as enemy bullets. As they rappelled down thick ropes into the darkness, each SEAL felt the familiar mixture of fear and excitement that came before every mission. Their boots hit the rocky ground with soft thuds, and immediately they spread out into a tactical formation that had been drilled into them through thousands of hours of training. The compound lay 3 miles ahead, nestled in a valley between 2 massive ridges. According to satellite imagery, it consisted of several mud brick buildings surrounded by high walls and guard towers. Intelligence estimated between 10 and 15 enemy fighters inside, most likely armed with AK-47 assault rifles and rocket-propelled grenades. Rodriguez checked his GPS and pointed toward a narrow canyon that would provide cover for their approach. Chun, take point. Thompson, watch our 6. Rivera, keep that radio close. We need to be in position before dawn. The team moved like ghosts through the rocky terrain, their desert camouflage blending perfectly with the surrounding landscape. Each man carried 60 pounds of equipment, including weapons, ammunition, water, medical supplies, and specialized gear for their individual roles. Despite the heavy load, they moved with practiced efficiency, stepping carefully to avoid loose rocks that might betray their position. After 2 hours of difficult climbing, they reached an observation post overlooking the target compound. Chun set up his sniper rifle and peered through the high-powered scope, counting enemy positions and looking for their primary target. What he saw made his blood run cold. "Boss, we've got a problem," Chen whispered into his throat microphone. "I count at least 30 fighters down there, not 15. And they've got heavy weapons. I can see 2 machine gun nests and what looks like a mortar position." Rodriguez crawled forward and took out his binoculars. The compound was much larger than their intelligence had indicated, with several additional buildings that hadn't appeared in the satellite photos. Worse, there were sentries posted at regular intervals along the walls, and he could see the distinctive green glow of night vision equipment. "Command, this is Bravo Team," Rivera spoke quietly into his radio. "Target area shows significantly more enemy presence than briefed. Request permission to abort and call for air support." Static filled their earpieces for several long minutes before a voice responded. "Bravo Team, negative on abort. Target is confirmed present and planning major operation for tomorrow. You are cleared to proceed with original mission parameters." Thompson shook his head in disbelief. 30 against 4, and they want us to go in anyway? These desk jockeys have lost their minds. But Rodriguez knew they had no choice. Intelligence had been tracking their target for months, and this was the first time they had pinpointed his exact location. If they lost him now, hundreds of innocent civilians might die in whatever attack he was planning. "We adapt and overcome," Rodriguez said firmly. "Chun, how's the shot look from here?" The sniper studied the compound through his scope. "Range is 800 meters, but with this wind and elevation, it's going to be tricky. Plus, there's too much movement down there. Too many civilians mixed in with the combatants." As the first rays of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, the SEALs realized their window of opportunity was closing fast. In daylight, their position would be exposed, and 30 enemy fighters would quickly overwhelm their small team. Rivera was monitoring radio chatter when his face suddenly went pale. "Boss, you need to hear this. I'm picking up communications from multiple enemy positions. This isn't just one compound. There are fighters spread throughout this entire valley." Rodriguez felt ice forming in his stomach as the true scope of their situation became clear. They weren't facing 30 enemies in a single location. They were sitting in the middle of what appeared to be a major Taliban stronghold, with fighters positioned on every ridge and in every canyon for miles around. "How many?" Rodriguez asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Rivera listened intently to the radio traffic, his face growing more concerned with each transmission. "At least 40, maybe more. And, boss, they know we're here. I'm hearing references to American troops in the area." The 4 SEALs looked at each other with the grim understanding that their mission had just become a fight for survival. They were outnumbered 10-1, surrounded by enemy fighters who knew the terrain better than any satellite map could show, and their extraction helicopter wouldn't return for another 12 hours. Chen continued scanning through his rifle scope, looking for any advantage they might have. "I've got movement on the south ridge, about 600 meters. Looks like a patrol heading this way." Thompson checked his ammunition and weapons one more time. "Well, gentlemen, looks like we're about to find out just how good our training really was." As the sun climbed higher over the mountains, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape, the 4 Navy SEALs prepared for what might be their final mission. They had survived impossible odds before, but never while being completely surrounded and outnumbered by such a wide margin. Rodriguez made the decision that would determine whether his team lived or died. "We're not sitting here waiting to be picked off. Chun, start taking out sentries on the north wall. Thompson and Rivera, we're going mobile. We'll create enough chaos to give Chun clear shots, then fight our way to that ridge line for better cover." But as they prepared to move, Rivera's radio crackled with an unexpected transmission. The voice was speaking English with a slight accent, and it wasn't coming from their command center. "American forces in the valley, this is Guardian Angel. I have eyes on your position and multiple enemy targets. Hold your current position and be ready for covering fire in 60 seconds. The 4 SEALs looked at each other in confusion. There were no other American units supposed to be operating in this area, and their mission was classified at the highest levels. Who was Guardian Angel, and how did they know about the SEAL team's predicament? The crack of a high-powered rifle echoed across the valley like thunder. 300 meters away, the lead fighter of the approaching patrol dropped to the ground, his AK-47 clattering on the rocks. Before his companions could react, a second shot rang out, then a third. In less than 10 seconds, 5 enemy combatants lay motionless on the mountainside. Rodriguez and his team watched in amazement as the remaining patrol members scattered for cover, shouting in Pashto and firing wildly in all directions. They had no idea where the shots were coming from, and their panic was evident even from the SEAL's distant observation post. "Bravo team, this is Guardian Angel." The mysterious voice came through their radios again. "Patrol neutralized. Move to Rally Point Alpha on your GPS. I'll provide overwatch." Rivera quickly checked his GPS unit and found coordinates that hadn't been there before, somehow uploaded to their system by their unknown savior. The location was a rocky outcropping about 500 meters to their northeast, offering better defensive positions and multiple escape routes. "Who the hell is this person?" Thompson whispered as they began moving toward the new position. "And how did they hack our GPS?" Rodriguez had the same questions, but survival took priority over curiosity. "Questions later, gentlemen. Right now, Guardian Angel is the only thing standing between us and a very bad day." As they moved across the treacherous terrain, Chin kept his rifle ready while scanning for threats. Through his scope, he could see enemy fighters emerging from concealed positions throughout the valley. The mysterious sniper had been right about the numbers. There were at least 40 hostile combatants, and more seemed to be arriving by the hour. The team reached the rally point just as enemy reinforcements began converging on their original position. From their new vantage point, they could see the compound below swarming with activity. Trucks were arriving with additional fighters, and someone was directing the search effort with military precision. "Guardian Angel, this is Rodriguez. We're in position at Rally Point Alpha. Who are you, and what's your status?" The response came immediately. "Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, United States Army. I've been tracking this Taliban cell for 3 weeks. Your mission walked right into the middle of their annual leadership gathering." Rodriguez felt his stomach drop. Their target wasn't just hiding in the compound. This was a major meeting of Taliban commanders from across the region, which explained the massive security presence and sophisticated coordination. "Mitchell, what's your position?" Rodriguez asked. "And why wasn't our command told about your operation?" "Long story, Sergeant. Right now, I'm positioned on the ridge approximately 1,000 meters north of your location, and we've got bigger problems than jurisdictional issues. I count 6 more patrols moving to surround your position." Chin adjusted his scope and began spotting the approaching threats. Guardian Angel was right again. Enemy fighters were moving through the canyon systems like water flowing downhill, systematically cutting off every escape route. Rivera was monitoring enemy communications when his face went white. "Boss, they're calling in helicopter support. 2 birds, estimated arrival in 20 minutes. The situation had just escalated from difficult to impossible. Enemy helicopters would spot their position immediately and pin them down for the ground forces to eliminate. Even with Guardian Angel providing sniper support, for SEALs couldn't fight off 40 enemy combatants and 2 helicopters. "Mitchell, we need extraction options," Rodriguez said into his radio. "Our birds aren't due back for 10 hours. "Working on it, Bravo team. But first, we need to thin the herd. I'm going to start picking off their leadership. Watch for my tracers, and be ready to exploit the confusion." What happened next would be talked about in sniper schools for decades to come. Guardian Angel began a systematic elimination of enemy commanders and communication personnel with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a predator. Each shot was perfectly placed, taking out key targets while avoiding the civilian population that was mixed throughout the compound. The first shot took out the enemy commander standing next to a radio antenna. The second eliminated a spotter in a watchtower who had been directing patrol movements. The third dropped a heavy weapons specialist who was setting up a mortar position. After each shot, Guardian Angel would relocate before return fire could find her position. The enemy fighters below were growing increasingly frustrated and disorganized as their leadership structure collapsed one bullet at a time. "Bravo team, I count 12 hostiles down." Mitchell's voice came through their headphones. "Their command structure is breaking apart. This is your window." Rodriguez made a tactical decision that went against everything in the manual. Instead of waiting for extraction, they would go on the offensive. Chun, can you get a clean shot on that radio array? The sniper studied the compound through his scope. Affirmative. Range is 750 meters. I can take out their communications with 2 shots. Do it. Chin's rifle barked twice in quick succession, and the enemy's primary radio antenna exploded in a shower of sparks and metal fragments. Immediately, the coordinated movements of the Taliban fighters began to break down as communication between units was severed. Guardian Angel took advantage of the confusion to eliminate 3 more targets, including a fighter who was attempting to set up a backup radio system. Her shots were coming from multiple positions now, making it impossible for the enemy to pin down her location. How is she moving that fast? Thompson asked as they watched another enemy fighter drop from what appeared to be a completely different angle than the previous shot. Rivera was monitoring his equipment when he noticed something unusual. Boss, I'm picking up digital signatures from advanced optics. Guardian Angel isn't just using a standard sniper rifle. She's got military-grade equipment that's not supposed to exist in this theater. The mystery of their savior was deepening, but Rodriguez didn't have time to worry about classified equipment or unauthorized operations. The sound of helicopter rotors was growing louder, and soon their position would be exposed. Mitchell, those birds are getting close. What's the plan? I'm working on it, Sergeant. I've got one more surprise for our friends down there. Guardian Angel's next shot didn't target a person. Instead, it struck a fuel depot near the compound's main building. The explosion was massive, sending flames and black smoke hundreds of feet into the air. Secondary explosions followed as ammunition and additional fuel supplies detonated in a chain reaction. The blast was so powerful that the SEALs felt the ground shake beneath them, even from their distant position. Debris rained down across the compound, and the organized search for the American troops immediately turned into a desperate firefighting effort. Holy shit, Chen breathed as he watched the destruction through his scope. What the hell did she hit? Fuel and ammunition storage. Mitchell's voice came back. Intelligence was wrong about a lot of things, but they were right about these guys stockpiling supplies. That explosion just took out about half their operational capacity. The approaching helicopters suddenly changed course, heading toward the burning compound instead of searching for the SEAL team. Through the thick smoke, it was impossible to conduct an effective search operation, and the Taliban commanders were screaming for immediate medical and firefighting support. But Guardian Angel wasn't finished. As the helicopters hovered over the compound, she fired 2 more carefully aimed shots. The first disabled the tail rotor of one aircraft, sending it into an uncontrolled spin that ended in a crash landing outside the compound walls. The second shot struck the engine block of the remaining helicopter, forcing it to make an emergency landing. 2 birds down, Mitchell reported with professional calm. Bravo team, this is your opportunity. I've cleared a path through the South Canyon. You've got maybe 20 minutes before they reorganize. Rodriguez looked at his men, seeing the same mixture of disbelief and admiration in their faces. Guardian Angel had just single-handedly neutralized the primary threats to their survival, but they were still surrounded by hostile forces in some of the most dangerous terrain on Earth. Mitchell, what about extraction? Even if we get out of this immediate area, we're still 30 miles from the nearest friendly forces. Already handled, Sergeant. I called in a favor with some friends who don't officially exist. There's a helicopter inbound to Extraction Point Bravo. Coordinates uploading to your GPS now. Rivera watched as new coordinates appeared on his screen. The extraction point was 15 miles away, across some of the most treacherous mountain terrain in Afghanistan. It would take them at least 6 hours to reach it on foot, assuming they didn't encounter any more enemy patrols. Guardian Angel, that's a hell of a hike through hostile territory. You coming with us? There was a long pause before Mitchell responded. Negative, Bravo team. I still have work to finish here. These men were planning something big, and I need to gather intelligence before the site is completely compromised. Rodriguez understood the implication. Guardian Angel was staying behind to complete a mission that was apparently more important than her own safety. Whatever operation she was running, it took priority over extraction with the SEAL team. Mitchell, you can't stay here alone. Once they regroup, this entire valley will be crawling with hostiles looking for revenge. I appreciate the concern, Sergeant, but this isn't my first rodeo. I've been operating behind enemy lines for longer than most people know is possible. Just get your team to that extraction point." As if to emphasize the urgency of their situation, rifle fire began echoing from multiple positions around the valley. The surviving Taliban fighters were starting to reorganize, and their search patterns were becoming more systematic. Chin packed his rifle and checked his gear. "Well, gentlemen, looks like we're about to take a very long walk through very unfriendly territory." Thompson shouldered his heavy pack and checked his ammunition supply. "At least we're not doing it alone. Guardian Angel will be watching over us." As they prepared to leave their defensive position, the canyon walls rose like prison bars on either side of the 4 Navy SEALs as they made their way through the treacherous terrain. Every shadow could hide an enemy fighter, and every sound echoed off the rocks like a warning bell. Rodriguez led the way, using hand signals to communicate with his team while Rivera monitored their GPS coordinates and enemy radio chatter. They had been moving for 2 hours when Chin suddenly raised his fist, signaling everyone to freeze. Through his rifle scope, he had spotted movement on the ridge above them. 3 figures in Taliban clothing were scanning the canyon with binoculars, obviously searching for the American forces they knew were in the area. "Bravo team, this is Guardian Angel." Mitchell's voice came through their earpieces. "I have eyes on the spotters above you. Hold position for 30 seconds. The SEALs pressed themselves against the canyon wall and waited. The sound of a single rifle shot echoed across the mountains, followed by shouts of alarm from the ridge. When Shin looked through his scope again, only 2 figures remained, and they were scrambling for cover. "1 down, 2 relocated," Mitchell reported. "You're clear to proceed, but watch your 6. There's another patrol coming up the main canyon about 10 minutes behind you." Rodriguez checked his watch and calculated distances. They were making good time, but not fast enough to stay ahead of the search parties that were systematically checking every possible escape route. The Taliban fighters knew this terrain better than any GPS system, and they were using that knowledge to set up ambush points along the most likely paths to freedom. As they continued through the winding canyon, Thompson suddenly stopped and pointed to markings on the rock wall. They were carved symbols that indicated this area had been used as a weapons cache, and recent disturbance in the sand suggested it was still active. "Boss, we might have a problem," Thompson whispered into his throat microphone. "This looks like a supply route. If they're moving weapons through here, there could be guards." Rodriguez studied the markings and agreed with Thompson's assessment. They were walking through what appeared to be a major Taliban supply line, which explained why the enemy had responded so quickly to their presence in the valley. Rivera was monitoring communications when his equipment picked up radio traffic that made his blood run cold. "Boss, they're not just searching for us anymore. They're setting up kill zones at every exit point from this canyon system. They know exactly where we're going." The realization hit Rodriguez like a physical blow. The Taliban weren't just reacting to their presence anymore. They had figured out that the Americans were trying to reach an extraction point, and they were moving to cut off every possible route. The 15-mile journey to safety had just become exponentially more dangerous. "Guardian Angel, this is Bravo team leader," Rodriguez said into his radio. "The enemy appears to have anticipated our extraction route. We need alternate options." Mitchell's response was immediate, but not encouraging. "Copy that, Sergeant. I'm tracking the same radio traffic. They've got roadblocks set up at 3 different choke points between your current position and the extraction site." Chun was studying the terrain through his scope when he spotted something that made the situation even worse. "Boss, I've got vehicle movement on the main road. Looks like they're bringing in heavy weapons." Through the powerful optics of his sniper rifle, Chun could see a convoy of trucks carrying mounted machine guns and what appeared to be anti-aircraft weapons. The Taliban weren't just trying to capture or kill the SEAL team anymore. They were preparing for a full-scale battle with any rescue forces that might arrive. "How many vehicles?" Rodriguez asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "I count 6 trucks, maybe 8. And, boss, these aren't the usual pickup trucks with machine guns bolted on. These guys have serious military equipment." Rivera continued monitoring enemy communications and discovered the source of their sophisticated response. "They're getting real-time intelligence updates from someone with access to American communication protocols. Someone is feeding them information about our movements." The implications of Rivera's discovery sent chills through the entire team. Either their communications had been compromised, or there was a Taliban sympathizer with access to classified military frequencies. Either way, it meant that every transmission they made was potentially being monitored by enemy forces. Rodriguez made the difficult decision to impose radio silence except for absolute emergencies. They would have to complete their journey to the extraction point without the benefit of Guardian Angel's overwatch and intelligence updates. But, as they prepared to continue their dangerous trek, Mitchell's voice came through their headphones one more time. "Bravo team, I know you're going silent, but I need you to know something. The extraction point has been compromised. Enemy forces are already moving to surround it." The four SEALs looked at each other with the grim understanding that their situation had gone from dangerous to hopeless. Their only way out was now controlled by enemy forces, and they were still hours away from reaching it even if they could fight their way through the Taliban roadblocks. "Mitchell, what are our options?" Rodriguez asked, breaking his own radio silence protocol because the situation demanded immediate answers. "I'm working on something, Sergeant. Give me 20 minutes to coordinate with my people. In the meantime, head for Checkpoint Charlie on your GPS. It's defensible terrain, and I can provide better overwatch from there." As new coordinates appeared on Rivera's GPS unit, the team began moving toward what they hoped would be their salvation. Checkpoint Charlie was a rocky plateau surrounded by steep cliffs, offering excellent fields of fire but limited escape routes. It would be a good place to make a stand, but potentially a terrible place to be trapped. The journey to the checkpoint took them through increasingly difficult terrain. They had to cross open areas where they were exposed to observation from multiple directions, climb steep rock faces that required technical mountaineering skills, and navigate through narrow passages where a single enemy fighter with an automatic weapon could pin down their entire team. Chun was providing rear security when he spotted movement that confirmed their worst fears. "Boss, we've got company. I count at least 12 fighters following our track. They're about 15 minutes behind us." Thompson checked his ammunition supply and found it lower than he would have preferred for a sustained firefight. How much farther to this checkpoint? Rivera consulted his GPS and calculated their remaining distance. "About 2 miles, but the terrain gets worse from here. We're going to have to climb that cliff face you see ahead." The cliff was nearly vertical and rose almost 300 feet above the canyon floor. Under normal circumstances, it would be a challenging climb even with proper equipment. With enemy forces pursuing them and limited supplies, it was going to be a nightmare. Rodriguez made another difficult tactical decision. "Chun, you're going to have to stay here and slow down that pursuit team. Thompson and Rivera, start climbing. I'll follow Chun up after he's done what he can." Chun immediately understood what his team leader was asking. He was being left behind to fight a delaying action against superior numbers, buying time for the rest of the team to reach the checkpoint. It was essentially a suicide mission disguised as a tactical necessity. "Roger that, boss," Chin said without hesitation. "I'll give you as much time as I can." But before Rodriguez could respond, Guardian Angel's voice cut through their communications. "Negative on that plan, Bravo team. I've got a better solution." The next sound they heard was the distinctive whistle of incoming artillery, followed by a massive explosion in the canyon behind them. The pursuing Taliban fighters disappeared in a cloud of smoke and debris as precision-guided munitions rained down on their position. "Mitchell, where did that fire support come from?" Rodriguez asked in amazement. "Let's just say I have friends in high places with access to very long-range assets. Now get moving to that checkpoint. The cavalry is coming, but they need a safe place to land." The artillery bombardment continued for several more minutes, effectively eliminating the immediate pursuit while providing the SEALs with cover to begin their climb up the cliff face. As they ascended the treacherous rock wall, each man focused on the simple task of finding the next handhold and foothold while trying not to think about the deadly drop below. Thompson was the first to reach the top, using his considerable upper body strength to haul himself over the edge and immediately establish a defensive perimeter. Rivera followed, then Rodriguez, and finally Chun, who had remained at the bottom until the last possible moment to watch for additional threats. Checkpoint Charlie was everything Guardian Angel had promised. The plateau offered commanding views of the surrounding terrain, and multiple defensive positions among the rocky outcroppings. More importantly, it was large enough to accommodate a helicopter landing zone, assuming any aircraft could navigate the dangerous mountain winds and hostile fire. As the team set up defensive positions and checked their remaining ammunition, Rivera's radio crackled with an incoming transmission on a frequency they didn't recognize. The voice was American, but the call sign was unfamiliar. "Bravo team, this is Razor 6-1 inbound to your position. ETA 15 minutes. Be advised, we're taking heavy ground fire from multiple locations. This is going to be a hot extraction." Rodriguez keyed his microphone to respond, but Guardian Angel's voice interrupted him. "Razor 6-1, this is Guardian Angel. I have overwatch on the landing zone. We'll provide suppressive fire on designated targets. Bravo team, mark your position with infrared strobes." As the SEALs activated their emergency beacons, the sound of helicopter rotors began echoing off the mountain peaks. But mixed with the sound of their salvation was the continuous chatter of automatic weapons fire from enemy positions throughout the valley. The first sign of the incoming air armada was a low rumble that seemed to come from the mountains themselves. Rodriguez and his team watched in awe as a formation of aircraft appeared over the eastern ridge, their sleek silhouettes cutting through the morning sky like deadly angels of salvation. "Bravo team, this is Talon Lead." A new voice crackled through their radio. "We show 4 friendlies at Checkpoint Charlie and multiple hostile positions throughout the target area. Guardian Angel is painting targets for precision strikes. Keep your heads down." Shin was scanning through his rifle scope when he saw laser beams dancing across enemy positions in the valley below. Guardian Angel was using advanced targeting equipment to guide the incoming airstrikes, marking Taliban machine gun nests and mortar positions with invisible infrared designators that showed up clearly through military optics. The first strike came without warning. A precision-guided bomb struck a heavy machine gun position on the southern ridge, obliterating the weapon's emplacement and the 4 fighters who had been operating it. The explosion echoed across the valley like thunder, sending debris and smoke hundreds of feet into the air. "Direct hit on target Alpha." Guardian Angel's voice came through their headphones with professional calm. "Shifting fire to target Bravo. Danger close to friendly positions." A second explosion rocked a mortar position in the valley below, eliminating another threat to the incoming rescue helicopters. But the Taliban fighters weren't passive targets. They began moving their weapons to new positions, using the rocky terrain and civilian buildings to shield themselves from air attack. Rivera was monitoring enemy communications when he picked up traffic that made his blood run cold. "Boss, they're calling in reinforcements from 3 different compounds. We're about to have company from every direction." Through his binoculars, Rodriguez could see dust clouds rising from multiple locations as vehicle convoys raced toward their position. The Taliban had decided to commit everything they had to prevent the American forces from escaping, even if it meant exposing their entire network to air attack. "Guardian Angel, we've got multiple vehicle columns inbound to our position," Rodriguez reported. "How much longer until extraction?" "Razor 6-1 is 5 minutes out, but these airstrikes are buying us time. The enemy is taking massive casualties, but they keep coming." Thompson was watching the northern approach when he spotted something that changed the entire tactical picture. "Holy shit, guys. Look at this." Following Thompson's pointing finger, the other SEALs saw what had captured his attention. A massive convoy was approaching from the north, but these weren't the usual Taliban pickup trucks. These were military-grade vehicles with heavy armor and sophisticated weapons systems. "Guardian Angel, are you seeing this northern convoy?" Rodriguez asked urgently. "These guys have serious hardware." "Copy that, Bravo team. I'm seeing the same thing. These aren't local Taliban. We're looking at foreign fighters with professional equipment." Chen adjusted his scope to get a better look at the approaching vehicles. What he saw confirmed their worst fears. The convoy included armored personnel carriers, mobile anti-aircraft guns, and what appeared to be a command vehicle with advanced communication equipment. "Boss, these guys aren't here to capture us," Chen said grimly. "They're here to start a war." The implications were staggering. The Taliban hadn't just stumbled upon a 4-man SEAL team. They had discovered a major American special operations mission and were using it as an excuse to reveal military capabilities that were supposed to be secret. Someone had been planning this confrontation for weeks or months. Talon lead. This is Guardian Angel. Mitchell's voice cut through the radio chatter. Priority targets are the vehicles in the northern convoy. These are high-value assets that need to be eliminated. The fighter aircraft immediately adjusted their attack pattern, diving toward the armored convoy with weapons systems locked and loaded. But, as they approached their targets, the mobile anti-aircraft guns opened fire, filling the sky with deadly tracers and explosive shells. One of the jets was forced to break off its attack run as surface-to-air missiles streaked past its cockpit. The Taliban had been equipped with military-grade air defense systems, turning what should have been an easy rescue mission into a full-scale aerial battle. Talon lead taking heavy fire, the pilot reported. These guys have Soviet-era SAMs and radar-guided guns. We need electronic warfare support. Within seconds, additional aircraft appeared in the sky above them. Electronic warfare planes began jamming enemy radar systems, while attack helicopters moved in to engage the anti-aircraft positions with precision missiles. The battle was escalating beyond anything the Four SEALs had ever experienced. What had started as a covert mission to eliminate a single Taliban commander had turned into a major engagement involving dozens of aircraft and hundreds of enemy fighters. Rivera was trying to make sense of the radio traffic when he detected something that changed everything. Boss, I'm picking up Chinese military frequencies. These guys are getting real-time intelligence from foreign sources. Rodriguez felt pieces of a larger puzzle falling into place. This wasn't just a Taliban operation. They had stumbled into the middle of an international incident involving foreign military advisors and sophisticated intelligence networks. Guardian Angel, did you copy that about Chinese frequencies? Rodriguez asked. Affirmative, Sergeant. This mission just got a lot more complicated. But, right now, we focus on getting you out alive. Deal with the political fallout later. Chun continued scanning for threats through his rifle scope when he spotted individual fighters moving through the rocks below their position. We've got climbers coming up the south face. Looks like they're trying to get close enough for rocket attacks. Thompson immediately moved to that side of the perimeter and began engaging the climbing fighters with controlled bursts from his assault rifle. His shots echoed off the cliff walls as enemy combatants fell back toward the canyon floor. But, for every fighter Thompson eliminated, 2 more seemed to take their place. The enemy had an apparently endless supply of reinforcements, and they were willing to take massive casualties to achieve their objective. Bravo team, this is Razor 6-1. The helicopter pilot's voice came through their radios. I'm seeing multiple SAM sites around your position. This is going to be a combat extraction under fire. Rodriguez could hear the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors growing louder, but it was mixed with the continuous chatter of automatic weapons and the whistle of incoming mortar rounds. The Taliban were throwing everything they had at the rescue attempt. Guardian Angel's voice cut through the chaos with urgent instructions. Bravo team, when I give the signal, you need to move to the western edge of the plateau. Razor 6-1 will hover while you fast rope down to the aircraft. You'll have maybe 30 seconds before the SAMs lock onto the helicopter. The plan was insane by any military standard. They would be rappelling down ropes into a helicopter that was under fire from multiple directions, with surface-to-air missiles tracking its movement. But it was their only chance for survival. Chun packed his rifle and prepared for the most dangerous 30 seconds of his life. Guardian Angel, what about you? Where's your extraction? There was a long pause before Mitchell responded. Don't worry about me, gentlemen. I've got my own way out. Just focus on getting to that bird. Thompson secured his gear and checked his rappelling equipment one more time. This is either going to be the best helicopter ride of our lives or the shortest. As the sound of rotors grew deafening, a massive CH-47 Chinook helicopter appeared over the ridge, its twin engines straining against the thin mountain air and hostile fire. The aircraft was taking hits from multiple directions, but the pilots were holding it steady in a hover just below the plateau's edge. Bravo team, this is Guardian Angel. Mitchell's voice came through their headphones one final time. Ropes are deployed. Go now, and Godspeed. Rodriguez led his team toward the western edge of the plateau as fast ropes dropped from the helicopter's open cargo door. Behind them, The battle for Checkpoint Charlie continued to rage as fighter aircraft and attack helicopters engaged enemy positions throughout the valley. But, as they prepared to rappel to safety, Chen spotted something through his rifle scope that made him hesitate. On a distant ridge, a lone figure was engaging multiple enemy positions simultaneously, moving between cover points with inhuman speed and accuracy. "That's her," Chen said in amazement. "That's Guardian Angel." Through his powerful optic sight, Chen could see a female figure in desert camouflage, armed with what appeared to be an advanced sniper system unlike anything in the standard military inventory. She was single-handedly holding off an entire company of enemy fighters while coordinating the airstrikes that were saving their lives. Rodriguez grabbed Chun by the shoulder and pulled him toward the rope. "Time to go, Marine. Guardian Angel can take care of herself." As the 4 Navy SEALs rappelled down to the waiting helicopter, the BA 3 days after their extraction from the mountains of Afghanistan, the 4 Navy SEALs sat in a sterile conference room at Bagram Air Base, facing a panel of officers whose rank insignia represented more combined authority than they had ever seen in one place. The debriefing had been going on for 6 hours, and the questions were becoming increasingly specific about Guardian Angel. Colonel James Harrison, the senior intelligence officer leading the inquiry, leaned forward across the metal table. "Gentlemen, I need you to understand something. According to official records, Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell died in a helicopter crash in Iraq 18 months ago. There is no Guardian Angel operation, and there is no sniper matching her description currently deployed in Afghanistan." Rodriguez exchanged glances with his teammates, seeing the same confusion and disbelief in their faces that he felt himself. "Sir, with all due respect, someone saved our lives up there. Someone with advanced equipment and detailed knowledge of enemy positions." "We're not questioning what happened to you, Sergeant Rodriguez," Colonel Harrison replied. "We're trying to understand who was responsible. The airstrikes you witnessed were conducted by assets from 3 different commands, coordinated by intelligence gathered from sources that officially don't exist." Chen shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Colonel, I saw her through my scope. Female, Caucasian, operating what looked like a prototype sniper system. She knew our call signs, our mission parameters, and our extraction protocols." Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Thompson, the psychological operations specialist on the panel, made notes on her tablet before looking up. "Petty Officer Chun, you were under extreme stress for over 12 hours. Combat situations can cause the mind to fill in details that create a coherent narrative from fragmentary information. But Rivera had been monitoring communications throughout their ordeal, and he had evidence that couldn't be explained away by combat stress. "Ma'am, I recorded some of the radio traffic. The voice patterns and communication protocols were consistent with an experienced special operations professional. This wasn't hallucination or wishful thinking." The senior officers exchanged meaningful looks before Colonel Harrison opened a classified folder that had been sitting on the table throughout the briefing. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels and cannot leave this room under any circumstances." The 4 SEALs leaned forward, knowing they were about to learn something that would change their understanding of everything that had happened in those mountains. Operation Ghost Walker was initiated 14 months ago in response to intelligence indicating that foreign military advisors were training Taliban forces in advanced combat techniques. Colonel Harrison began. "The mission required deep penetration of enemy territory by a single operator who could gather intelligence and eliminate high-value targets without revealing American involvement." Thompson checked her notes before continuing the briefing. Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell was selected for this mission based on her exceptional skills as a sniper and her psychological profile indicating an unusual ability to operate in isolation for extended periods. She was officially declared killed in action to provide cover for her insertion into Afghanistan. Rodriguez felt pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. "So she's been operating behind enemy lines for over a year? Alone?" "Not entirely alone," Colonel Harrison corrected. "She has access to satellite intelligence, electronic warfare support, and emergency air assets when necessary. But her day-to-day operations are conducted without any ground support or backup." Chen was trying to process the implications of what they were hearing. "How is that possible? The psychological stress alone would break most people." Lieutenant Colonel Thompson pulled up a classified file on her tablet. Sergeant Mitchell underwent experimental psychological conditioning designed to enhance stress tolerance and decision-making under extreme conditions. The techniques were developed based on research into prisoner-of-war resistance and survival psychology. Rivera had monitored enough classified communications to understand the broader picture. This isn't just about one Taliban commander, is it? You're using her to map the entire enemy network in this region. Operation Ghost Walker has been extraordinarily successful, Colonel Harrison confirmed. In 14 months, Sergeant Mitchell has eliminated 17 high-value targets and provided intelligence that has prevented at least 12 major attacks on coalition forces. But Thompson was reviewing psychological evaluation reports that painted a more troubling picture. However, we're concerned about her long-term psychological stability. Extended isolation combined with high-stress combat operations can cause personality fragmentation and loss of emotional connection to normal human relationships. Rodriguez remembered the calm professionalism in Guardian Angel's voice during their rescue, never showing fear or uncertainty even while engaging overwhelming enemy forces. She saved our lives without hesitation. Whatever psychological effects she might be experiencing, her tactical judgment seems sound. That's exactly what worries us, Thompson replied. Individuals who show no fear or emotional response in extreme combat situations often develop psychological disorders that make it difficult for them to reintegrate into normal military or civilian life. Chen was thinking about the precision of Guardian Angel's shots and the advanced equipment she had been using. What kind of support does she have for equipment maintenance and resupply? Colonel Harrison consulted his classified notes. She has access to prototype weapons systems and surveillance equipment that are field-tested through her mission. Supply drops are conducted by stealth aircraft at predetermined coordinates, but she often goes weeks between resupply operations. The revelation explained the sophisticated targeting systems and communications equipment that had seemed beyond standard military inventory. Guardian Angel was essentially a live test subject for next-generation special operations technology. Thompson continued reading from psychological profiles. Her mission reports show increasingly detached language and reduced emotional content over the past 6 months. She's also begun making tactical decisions that prioritize mission success over her own safety. Rivera understood the implications immediately. You're worried she's becoming too effective, that she's losing the human judgment that keeps soldiers from becoming killing machines. The concern is valid, Colonel Harrison admitted. Sergeant Mitchell has been in continuous combat operations longer than any special forces operator in modern military history. The psychological toll is unprecedented. Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, thinking about the woman who had saved their lives while fighting an entire Taliban network single-handedly. What's her extraction timeline? When does she come home? There was a long pause before Colonel Harrison answered. That's classified above your security clearance. But I can tell you that Operation Ghost Walker is ongoing, and Sergeant Mitchell's mission parameters remain active. The 4 SEALs realized with growing horror that Guardian Angel wasn't coming home anytime soon. She was trapped in the mountains of Afghanistan, fighting an endless war that was slowly destroying her mind while providing invaluable intelligence to military commanders who viewed her as an expendable asset. Thompson closed her tablet and looked directly at Rodriguez. What we need from you, gentlemen, is a detailed psychological assessment of her behavior during your interaction. Any signs of instability or compromised judgment could affect her mission status. Rodriguez made a decision that would define his military career. Colonel, our assessment is that Sergeant Mitchell performed professionally under extreme conditions. Her tactical decisions were sound, and her dedication to mission success saved American lives. Chun, Thompson, and Rivera immediately understood what their team leader was doing. Despite any concerns about Guardian Angel's psychological state, they were not going to provide information that might result in her being abandoned in enemy territory. I concur with Sergeant Rodriguez's assessment, Chen said firmly. Guardian Angel demonstrated exceptional competence and sound tactical judgment. Thompson and Rivera nodded their agreement, presenting a united front that surprised the debriefing officers. They had expected the combat-stressed SEALs to provide detailed information that could be used to evaluate Guardian Angel's fitness for continued operations. Colonel Harrison closed his classified folder and stood up. "Gentlemen, your official mission report will reflect successful completion of reconnaissance objectives and extraction under enemy fire. Any details about Guardian Angel or Operation Ghost Walker are classified and cannot be discussed outside of official channels." As they left the briefing room, the 4 SEALs carried with them the knowledge that somewhere in the mountains of Afghanistan, a lone American soldier continued to fight a secret war that was slowly consuming her humanity. They had been sworn to secrecy about her existence, but they would never forget the debt they owed to the ghost sniper who had saved their lives. 6 months later, Rivera would pick up fragments of radio traffic indicating that Guardian Angel was still active in the region. Chin would receive classified briefings mentioning precision eliminations of enemy targets that matched her signature techniques. Thompson would hear rumors about a female sniper whose kill count had reached legendary status among special operations units. But Rodriguez would never learn whether Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell ever made it home from the mountains, where she had become more legend than human. Operation Ghost Walker remained classified, and Guardian Angel remained a ghost, protecting American lives from the shadows of a war that officially didn't exist. The 4 Navy SEALs would carry the secret of Guardian Angel for the rest of their military careers, knowing that sometimes the most heroic actions are performed by soldiers whose names will never be known and whose sacrifices will never be officially recognized. In the classified world of special operations, Sarah Mitchell had become something beyond human understanding. A guardian angel who watched over American forces from the deadly peaks of Afghanistan, one perfect shot at a time. Years later, when they had all retired from active duty, the 4 SEALs would occasionally meet at military reunions and remember the day they were saved by a ghost. They would raise a toast to Guardian Angel, the mysterious sniper who had given them the gift of going home to their families, and they would wonder if she had ever received the same gift herself. The truth about Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell would remain buried in classified files, accessible only to a handful of officers with the highest security clearances. But her legend would live on in the whispered stories of special operations units, a reminder that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places, and sometimes heroes are forged in the loneliness of mountains where no one can hear them except the enemies they hunt in the darkness. Toll for Checkpoint Charlie reached its climax. Fighter jets screamed overhead. Attack helicopters engaged ground targets with rockets and machine guns. And somewhere in the mountains above, a mysterious sniper continued her deadly work. The Chinook helicopter banked hard to the left as soon as the SEALs were aboard, diving toward the valley floor to avoid incoming surface-to-air missiles. Through the open cargo door, Rodriguez watched the plateau disappear behind them, along with any trace of the woman who had saved their lives. As they flew towards safety, Rivera picked up one final transmission on Guardian Angel's frequency. Mission accomplished. All friendly forces extracted safely. Guardian Angel going dark. The 4 SEALs would never forget the debt they owed to Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, the ghost sniper who had appeared from nowhere to save them from certain death. But, as they would discover in the debriefing rooms back at headquarters, Guardian Angel's mission was far from over. Chin set up his rifle and began scanning for targets through his scope. What he saw made his heart sink. The Taliban hadn't given up after the artillery barrage. If anything, they seemed more determined than ever to prevent the American forces from escaping. "Boss, they've got this whole area locked down. I count machine gun positions on 3 different ridgelines, and it looks like they're setting up mortars in the valley below." Rodriguez realized that Guardian Angel had orchestrated more than just a rescue mission. She had created a trap that would bring American helicopters into range of a sophisticated anti-aircraft ambush. The question was whether she had the firepower to neutralize all the threats before their rescue birds were shot down. Thompson was monitoring the tactical radio frequency when he heard something that changed everything. "Guys, you need to hear this. Razor 6-1 isn't just one helicopter. It's an entire flight of special operations aircraft, and they're carrying enough firepower to level this entire mountain." As if to confirm Thompson's report, the sound of jet engines suddenly filled the air above them. Fighter aircraft were arriving to provide close air support, and their targeting systems were being guided by Guardian Angel's laser designators. The battle for Checkpoint Charlie was about to begin, and it would determine whether 4 Navy SEALs lived to see another day or became casualties in the unforgiving mountains of Afghanistan. Hughes tried one more time to convince their mysterious savior to come with them. Mitchell, last chance. We can make room for one more on that extraction bird. Thanks for the offer, Sergeant, but my mission isn't complete. I'll be fine. These mountains have been home for a while now. Rodriguez keyed his microphone one final time before they began their dangerous journey. Guardian Angel, from all of us, thank you. You saved our lives today. Just doing my job, Bravo team. Now get moving. You've got a long way to go, and I can only watch your backs for so long. As the 4 SEALs began their treacherous descent into the canyon system, none of them could have imagined the full truth about Guardian Angel. Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell was operating under orders so classified that even their own command structure had no knowledge of her mission. She had been inserted into the region 3 weeks earlier as part of an operation that officially didn't exist, tracking Taliban leadership with equipment that was supposedly still in development. Behind them, smoke continued to rise from the compound as secondary explosions rocked the valley. Somewhere in the mountains above, a lone sniper continued her deadly work, eliminating threats and gathering intelligence that would save countless lives in the weeks to come. Rodriguez keyed his microphone. Guardian Angel, this is Bravo Team Leader. Identify yourself and your unit. Bravo Team, questions later. Survival now. Enemy patrol approaching from your 9 o'clock. 300 meters and closing. Get ready to move on my signal. As if summoned by the mysterious voice, Chin spotted movement through his scope exactly where Guardian Angel had indicated. A group of armed fighters was indeed approaching their position, and they would be in rifle range within minutes. The SEALs had trained for every possible scenario, but nothing had prepared them for this moment. They were about to trust their lives to an unknown sniper who claimed to be watching over them from somewhere in the vast mountain wilderness. In a few seconds, they would either be saved by a Guardian Angel or led into a trap by an enemy who spoke perfect English. Rodriguez gripped his weapon tighter and whispered a prayer he hadn't said since childhood. Around him, his 3 teammates prepared for what could be their last stand in the unforgiving mountains of Afghanistan.